Obama breaks his silence and sends a direct message to the U.S. Armed Forces. When a former president decides to reappear publicly to talk about institutional loyalty, it's worth paying attention to where, how, and why he chooses to do so. That's exactly what happened at the opening of the Barack Obama Presidential Library in Chicago, an event that at first glance seemed merely ceremonial but turned into a stage for a politically weighty message. According to reports released about the event, Obama chose to dedicate a significant part of his speech not to nostalgic recollections of his administration, but to a thorny and current topic. To whom, after all, do the armed forces and security agencies of the United States owe loyalty? The answer he presented, according to the statements reproduced by the press, is direct. Loyalty does not belong to a president, a party, or a specific political figure. It belongs to the Constitution and the American people. It may seem like an obvious principle, almost a commonplace from any political science textbook, but the moment chosen to publicly reaffirm it says a lot about the institutional climate currently being experienced in the United States. It's no secret that, in recent years, the debate over the role of military institutions within American democracy has taken on unusual weight. Discussions about the use of troops for domestic security purposes, about the politicization of command positions, and about respect for orders considered constitutionally questionable have returned to the center of public debate. It is in this context that Obama's remarks gain relevance, not as a direct accusation against any specific name, but as a repositioning of principles that, according to him, are being tested. It's worth noting, this commentary does not treat Obama's words as proof of any conspiracy or hidden plan. This is an analysis of the political meaning of a public speech given at a symbolic moment by a figure who continues to carry significant weight within the Democratic Party and in American public opinion. The choice of Chicago, a city that carries his personal and political legacy, reinforces the idea that this was not an improvised speech, but a carefully planned moment meant to deliver a message. And it is precisely this care that makes the speech interesting to analyze. Obama did not name names, did not make formal accusations, but chose a topic that, in the current American political landscape, carries enormous symbolic weight. By reaffirming that the armed forces serve the Constitution and not individuals, he reopens an old but urgent debate about the limits of presidential power and about the extent to which national security institutions are shielded against momentary political pressures. If the first layer of Obama's speech deals with the institutional loyalty of the armed forces, the second layer, perhaps even more ambitious, concerns the general functioning of American democratic institutions. And here, the former president did not limit himself to talking about uniforms and military hierarchies. He went further, publicly defending pillars such as judicial independence, freedom of the press, and the system of checks and balances that, in theory, prevents any of the three branches of power from accumulating too much authority. It's important to separate two levels here. On one side, there are the principles themselves, which are part of the constitutional architecture of the United States and are by no means an invention or personal opinion of Obama's. On the other side, there is the political reading of why he decided to reaffirm them precisely now in a high-profile speech. This second part is evidently a matter of interpretation and analysis. And that is exactly where this commentary positions itself without turning opinion into verdict. By mentioning equality before the law as an essential value, Obama seems to engage directly with recent debates about differential treatment of political figures within the American justice system, a topic that, according to various reports, has once again divided public opinion and the political class in recent years. Once again, this is not about pointing fingers, but about recognizing that this speech emerges amid a real and still unresolved debate about equal justice in the United States. Obama's criticism of foreign policy related to the Iran nuclear deal also fits into this institutional layer, albeit indirectly. For him, abandoning the agreement did not produce safer results, but rather an increase in regional tensions, higher military costs, and less diplomatic predictability. This criticism, it's worth emphasizing, is a political position subject to dispute, and analysts and former officials from different administrations disagree about the real effects of this decision, and treating this assessment as consensus would be an analytical error. What connects these two fronts, the judiciary and foreign policy, is the central idea that decisions made outside traditional institutional channels under justifications of urgency or exception tend to generate long-term consequences that are difficult to reverse. Whether by weakening public trust in the justice system or by altering the balance of power in a strategic region like the Middle East, Obama's argument seems to be the same. Strong institutions prevent impulsive decisions, and impulsive decisions, even when popular in the short term, tend to exact a high price later on. The third layer of this story is perhaps the most delicate of all. What this speech means in political and electoral terms, and why other Democratic leaders decided to stand alongside Obama right afterward. Names like Nancy Pelosi, Gavin Newsom, and Joe Biden appeared publicly reinforcing the former president's message, highlighting the importance of international alliances, diplomacy, and the preservation of democratic institutions. This is no coincidence, and any serious political analysis needs to recognize the obvious. There is a coordinated communication strategy behind this movement. But caution is needed when interpreting this convergence. We are not talking about a conspiracy, but rather something quite common in American politics. Leaders from the same party amplifying a narrative they consider strategically useful, especially at a moment of strong polarization. Obama himself, in his speech, made a point of stating that the United States is greater than its current political divisions, a message of unity that, whether intentionally or not, also serves as a counterpoint to more aggressive and fragmenting rhetoric circulating in recent public debate. This appeal to unity has a dual effect. On one hand, it is genuinely consistent with the public image Obama has always tried to build, that of a leader who values dialogue and cooperation above pure partisan dispute. On the other hand, one cannot ignore that this type of speech also serves a fairly clear political function, positioning the Democratic Party as the side of institutional responsibility, stability, and respect for the rules of the game, in implicit contrast to its opponents. And here, another important symbolic element comes in: the presidential library itself. More than a space of memory, it was presented as a center focused on civic education and strengthening democratic participation among future generations. It is no exaggeration to say that this choice is also political. By turning his legacy into an educational space aimed at forming more engaged citizens, Obama is, in a way, investing in the electoral and ideological future of the Democratic camp itself, even though he will never run for office again. In the end, what this set of statements and movements reveals is a coordinated attempt to reposition the Democratic narrative around solid institutional values at a time when public trust in American institutions remains weakened. Whether this strategy will work electorally is something only time and the ballot box can answer with precision. If this topic interests you, hit like, turn on notifications, and subscribe to the channel to follow upcoming analyses on the inner workings of American politics. And what do you think of this message from Obama? A legitimate warning about the future of institutions, or just another chapter in the dispute between Democrats and Republicans? Share your opinion in the comments. Don't be afraid to disagree. Share this video with others who follow U.S. politics closely, and stay tuned because this story is far from over.